Today, I'm going to give you a reality check on what happens when you don't do all the things that everyone says you're supposed to do to run a good eBay reselling business. So, not necessarily breaking all the rules per se, but certainly not following the best practices that all the experts say you're supposed to do, including myself in prior videos. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. So, just a little bit of background. Let me tell you what I mean when I say I'm not doing what you're supposed to do. I have not listed a single new item on my eBay store since August 21st. Yep, that's coming up on 6 months. I stopped shipping to the USA for 2 months. USA was previously my greatest pool of buyers. 80 to 90% of my buyers were in the US, and I love my American buyers, but you know, things happened. Put a video up here, give you the gory details if you're not aware of that. I shut my eBay store off completely, total shutdown for 45 days. That's about just over 6 weeks, almost 6.5 weeks, just because I couldn't deal with it anymore. So way to grind things to a halt, right? And in the months of November and December, I had my store on vacation mode twice. A week in November and 2 weeks in December. Now, people can still buy, but there's obviously delayed shipping when I'm not here at home with my inventory to be able to pop those items in the courier. So those are certainly not the things that anyone would tell you to do if you're trying to run an eBay reselling business. But that's my life. That's the reality. That's what happened. So let's get into what actually sold. I'm going to give you the gory details, what I paid, what the buyer paid, and what was my net profit at the end of the day. So let's skip right ahead to the first item. First item up for bids on The Price is Right, just kidding, is this little set of vintage brass turtle ashtrays. I also put, you'll notice in the title, trinket dishes. In case somebody's a non-smoker, they still might like these for a bookshelf or, you know, in a display of some fashion. So you can see I paid $9. For me, not for everybody, but for me, that would be considering paying up for something. I usually get my items for very, very cheaply, as you will see. But these ones I saw at the thrift store at Goodwill, regular retail Goodwill store. And I thought they were cute, looked them up, saw they could sell for profit, so paid it. You can see the buyer paid $52.28. Now let me clarify. Always like to be very clear about what's in the numbers. So when I say buyer paid, that includes the cost of the item and shipping. Does not include any sales taxes or anything they may have paid, because eBay just deals with all of that directly. I don't even see that money, and I don't have to remit that money to government. eBay takes care of all of that. So the item plus shipping is what the buyer paid. My net profit after the eBay fees, the shipping cost, and my cost of acquiring the goods in the first place, or cost of goods sold, is almost $24. So that's the first item. Now, what I should also say is I'm going to show you everything that sold between November 7th, when I turned my store back on, and December 31st, in order that it sold. So it's going to be completely random. Some are going to be great profits. Some are going to be, well, not quite as much profit, but you'll really get a flavor of what my day-to-day looks like when you see the order and the nature and the categories of all of these different items that have sold. So moving right along, keep it moving, Don. We got a bunch of items to get through today. All right, the second one that sold is this Ergo baby carrier. Now, I picked this up at the Goodwill bins. You can see I paid $2.76. These things can be quite pricey, so I sold it. Again, this is in pre-owned condition after I washed it for $56.54. My profit that's left after the expenses and shipping is $34.37. Now that one took 148 days to sell. I forgot to say on the turtles, 93 days to sell. So, you know, one thing you need to, again, bear in mind here, All these numbers that I'm showing as far as the number of days to sell, my store was closed for business for 45 days. So that is automatically going to inflate all of these numbers as far as the number of days to sell, because somebody couldn't even buy it if they wanted to for that period of a month and a half when the store was shut down. So just keep that in mind. But I will, acknowledge, even with that in mind, this one still over 100 days to sell. That's more than 3 months. I'll take it though. Net profit, $34.37. All right, moving right along. The next one, well, it's actually two because it's the same buyer, was an oopsie on my part. So they first bought the one at the top, and these are vintage, really heavy duty stainless steel cooking pots, as you can see. And they bought, I have to look at my notes here, the 1.5 quart pot. Now, I knew that I had more than one of these, but grabbed it, threw it in the box. I'm usually a really fast shipper, so I paid $1.86. They paid $57.29. After I shipped it to them, I was left with $27.21. Took 100 days to sell. Now I get a message when I see that it's been delivered, and they're like, this is a great pan and it's in lovely condition, but it's not the one we ordered. I did another video a while back about my 10 big reseller mistakes. I'll link it up here because this was one of them in case you missed that video. Anyway, so came to realize these two pans, one is 1 quart, one is 1.5 quarts, are very similar in size, like something like 3/4 of an inch difference. So not immediately obvious to the eye. Anyway, suffice it to say, they were wonderful, this buyer. Of course, they wanted the specific one that they ordered, well, no doubt. So they said, we'll keep it, but we really want the other one. And so I offered, in that case, since this was 100% on me, my error, if they would purchase the other one, I would refund the full shipping cost. And so that's why you can see on the second one that I acquired for $3.25, they paid the cost of the item I had listed for $22.99, which made, after I paid for shipping, me lose $5.20. So, oops. Hey, you know what? Could have been worse. And at the end of the day, the customer was happy. I sort of still recouped from my error and didn't get a bad rating. And, let's just say we avoided some issues there too. So that was an interesting one to be sure. And again, 100 days to sell. Let's move on to the next item. So again, we're just switching up the categories here. We had some brass turtles, we had a baby carrier, we've got pots and pans, and now we've got some shoes. It's a little bit of everything around here at Flippity Flipped. These are cheerleading shoes, to be specific. So you can see I acquired them for $4.27. These I found at the Goodwill bins, I believe in California, San Bernardino, California, near Palm Springs. Paid $4.27, as I said. The buyer paid $43.69, and that left me with a profit of $18.65. So not a huge profit. Took 144 days to sell. So even with my store being closed, that's 100 days of being listed. But hey, I'll take it, right? I've acquired these items now and paid Nathan to list them on eBay. So if they sell and I make a profit, I'm a happy camper. Okay, next up, if these were my size, I think I would have kept them. These are beautiful leather Ugg boots. So not your typical slouchy Uggs. These are really classy looking, bit of an equestrian flair, beautiful leather boots. They're called Amber Lee is the style. Anyway, check me out. I acquired these for $2.02. Yes, that's at the Goodwill bins. And the buyer with shipping paid $100.98 for these beauties. That left yours truly with a profit of $70.84. Took 137 days to sell, but I'm okay with that. All right, next up, what's going on with all the babies at this point? Anyway, another baby carrier. This one is a baby Bjorn, Again, I got this, as you can probably tell from the cost I paid for the 79 cents. Got it at the bins, and the buyer paid $53.57, left me with a nice tidy $32. Took, what's that, 5 months, 151 days to sell. All right, let's just switch it up again. We'll go back to the kitchen. Now we have a vintage Pyrex measuring cup. This I acquired for $1 whole at a yard sale in the summer. And the buyer paid $19.99. That's a nice round number. And that's because it was local pickup. So it was a local Calgary buyer, paid the item cost, and of course, no shipping. So I met them in a grocery store parking lot to deliver it. They were thrilled. And I made $14.94. Took 127 days. So it sat there for 4 months waiting to sell, but it did. All right, next one. More glassware. This is a Starbucks embossed siren. I guess that's the logo. Cold cup. No straw. So even sort of a flaw, if you will, without the straw. I paid $2.10 that the buyer then acquired for $43.46. Now, side note, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I just don't quite get the whole Starbucks fixation. I do love their lemon loaf. But anywho, I know that some of these Starbucks, especially rare items, are popular. So clearly this one was just what someone was looking for. Left me though with $13.64. So the shipping on that one must have been a little bit much. Well, breakable, right? So I would have had to put it in a bigger box. Anyway, hey, I'll still take $13.64 profit, 130 days to sell. All right, next up, we're into some clothing. Why not? We've got a men's golf hat. This is a hat. It says, if you look in the keywords there, soakable. So I think this is a hat. Again, I don't wear this, but I think you could soak it in water on a super crazy hot day, stick it on your head, and stay nice and cool when you're out there on the links. Anyway, got it at the bins, as you can probably tell, $1.74. Buyer paid $71.90 with shipping. This is a handmade hat, I will just add. And that left me with almost $41 profit on a light little hat. Now, I did have to, pack it so it didn't get completely scrunched, but the fact that it's soakable gave me a little bit of, let's say leeway, that it didn't have to go in a box like the way a cowboy hat or something like that would, right? 164 days to sell, but check out that tidy net profit. All right, the next one up, I actually did a little YouTube short on this one because I thought it was so hilarious. This pepper mill was like half of my height. Anyway, that's what it felt like. I found this at Goodwill retail store, paid $8.50, which is a lot for me to pay for a used pepper mill, but it's Trudeau Professional Series. So this would be like what you'd see in a steakhouse restaurant or something, which I even put in my keywords. And you can see the buyer paid with shipping $106.09. So I made a tidy, after all the cost and expenses and everything, a nice tidy 66 just about dollars profit on a pepper mill. Yes, I enjoy selling salt and pepper mills for that reason. 113 days to sell. Now, let's just flip it into a different category again. Now we have a game. I saw this in the Goodwill bins one day and I was like intrigued because it was wood. It looked very interesting. It had a crocodile on the top of it, which I've seen crocodiles a couple times in my life. And so I was like, hey, what's that? Opened it up. I'm like, I have no idea what this thing is. Turns out it's an African mancala. Don't know if that's how you pronounce it. A game. And so I got it for 79 cents at the bins that day. Buyer paid $48.69. So quick little $25 profit for me. Well, okay, not quick. It did take 186 days to sell, 6 months, but why not? Does anybody know this game? If you know this game, put a comment down below and tell me how you play it, because I'm ever so curious about these holes and if there's some sort of marbles or balls or something that goes in there. I'm really curious. I've never looked it up. You tell me if you know. All right, let's switch it up yet again. And now we've sold a wallet. So this is a brand called Crumpler. And I had never heard of this brand until I came across actually like a messenger bag that they made. I found it at the Goodwill bins. And come to find out, these are, I don't know, there's probably like some following for these types, this brand of bags. And it's kind of a popular thing. So you can see this little wallet, it was like just tiny, this big, canvasy kind of, heavy duty sort of material. And they name their items. So this is called the Chumpy, and it's a green little wallet, all kinds of card slots inside. Well, I paid 65 cents and my buyer paid $45.47. So that left me a very tidy little net profit of over $31 on this little tiny wallet. And could anything be easier to ship? I don't think so. The issue with this one was putting in a package large enough to actually have the label on it. Anyway, that one sold a little bit quicker than a lot of the others you've been seeing, only 81 days. All right. Now, what is this next item, you might be asking yourselves? Well, let me read the label. It is a vintage Peruvian chulucanas. Forgive my pronunciation if you know how to properly say that word. A large pottery egg. So it's like, it was about this big. And it had this, beautiful sort of pattern on it. And I don't know what made me pick that up at the Goodwill one day. I paid $5.24. But a buyer obviously wanted it for their decor and paid $55 and a penny. And that left me with just under $20 profit. Again, not as big a profit when you got a lot of involved shipping and a bigger than, average box. But still, I'm happy to clear out these items after 154 days listed. Never mind in my death pile, listed. Let's get another one out of the house. Okay, next one up is another local pickup. So this one is some angel chimes. So made in Turkey, brass plated, but like a Swedish design, these Christmas decorations. I paid $1.09 at the thrift store. Buyer paid $16.99. Now, of course, there's no shipping in here, so you don't see those, extra large kind of buyer paid numbers. Left me a profit of $12.41. So not a huge dollar amount, but when you figure you can take $1 and turn it into $12, that's not a bad thing. And that took, wow, only 81 days to sell. Okay, moving on. Is this not so cute? A little story on this one. This is another local pickup, and the buyer messaged me right when they purchased the item, and they said, oh my goodness, we are so thrilled to find this bumblebee. Our daughter has one, and it's so like torn, and we've washed it, and it's really on its, it's really not in great shape, and they were going to give this one to her for Christmas. So, that just warms my heart when I get to hear a nice little story like that, as well as making a profit. So paid just over $1, buyer paid $25, and that's again without any shipping. Met them in my grocery store parking lot, left me just about $19 profit. Pretty easy stuff. All right, next one, not so easy to ship, but again, a very tidy profit. So this was a pottery, like a studio pottery mixing bowl, probably about this big, nice handle on it, and a beautiful colorway. I really liked the glaze and how they had decorated it both inside and outside, as you can see up here. And how big was it? Yeah, 10.5 inches wide. And anyway, nice sort of a batter bowl or mixing bowl. I got it for $5. And the buyer paid, of course, some fairly decent shipping on this thing because it was not only heavy, but, we had a fairly big box it needed to be in. $108.29. And my profit on this one $5 item was $73.51. Took 115 days, but I'm happy to wait 115 days for almost a $74 profit. All right. Again, another cutie. Like, I don't typically pick up plush, but when I'm at the bins and if I'm walking around and one of these little critters just catches my eye, sometimes I will look them up because I do know, well, I'm always looking for a jelly cat. Have never found one yet, but sometimes these things can be worth some okay money. So here's baby Gonzo, super cute. Paid $1.21 at the bins, sold it for $36.39, and my profit, end of the day, was $16.21. Took a long time to sell, 200 plus days, but again, this little guy just sat in a little bin and waited for someone to buy him. Okay, we're up to another wallet now, and this is, again, these are all sales that happened from November 7th to November 30th. So this one I paid up. So when I say paid up, I know it's a signal to myself that I did not get this at the bins when I see $7.80. In fact, I did buy this one at the Goodwill store, and I would only ever do that after looking it up. I wasn't familiar with this brand. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Harbor Second. And you can see there's a little, like an anchor is sort of their, I guess, logo. Anyway, zip around, beautiful red leather wallet. I mean, I could see and feel the quality, looked up the brand, and sure enough, seems to have a bit of a following. So buyer paid $55.19 and my profit was $21.41. Not huge, but again, super easy to store, easy to ship, and it took 107 days. One more for November, here it is. And this is, again, not your standard Uggs. I always look up Uggs because, of course, we all know, well, most of us know about Uggs, and they certainly do have quite a following, very popular brand name. But these are called the Classic Cardi. Cardi as in like cardigan, because they're like a sweater on your legs. How fun is that? They were in a nice purple color. You can see they go up high. You can actually roll them down as well. I got them at the bins for $1.36. Buyer paid $64.10 with shipping and left me with $36.31. These took just over 3 months to sell. We listed them obviously not in the winter season, and they sold as winter had just started here in Canada. So that was a bunch of random stuff, wasn't it? Let me give you the totals for the month of November right up here. So this is about a 3-week period, again, after my store had been completely shut down for 45 days. And you can see I sold 20 items. So 20 items in, what's that, 23 days? Not bad. For a total set, like buyer paid, that's again the item plus shipping, almost $1,100, $1,083. Take off shipping, take off eBay fees, take off cost of goods, and I was left with $576 profit. Truthfully, for 3 weeks, that's better than I thought it was going to be after having the store completely shut down, not listing items, not doing all the things I said I wasn't doing that you're supposed to do to make eBay sales. So, not mad at that number. And I'll just show you again here, when you look at that number of $576 profit, that represents 938%, or 9 times my money for what I paid for those goods, which was about $62. So not quite 10x, but close. So now let's get into, don't worry, there's not as many, but the items that sold in December. First up are these very unique bubbly wine glasses from Pier 1. Quite the nice bowl. I paid $6, so $3 each when I picked those up. Buyer paid $71.33. And my net profit after very carefully shipping these was $43.06. Now, 212 days to sell, but still, it is what it is. Okay, next up, let's do something else again and sell a belt. Why not? This was a Holt Renfrew brand. Holt Renfrew is a high-end department store here in Canada, kind of like your Neiman Marcus, Bloomingdale's, that sort of thing. This was something I bought for a whopping $1.42. Buyer paid $40 and change, and I made $22 profit on this belt. Now again, you roll them up, they're like this big. You just slip them into a little poly mailer, good to go. Easy peasy, 102 days. Okay, now this is cute, right? If I wasn't decluttering, I might have kept this for myself. Anyway, you can see I paid a whopping 50 cents for this little Umbra frame. You can put, notes, cards, photos, whatever you want in the little slots. And the buyer paid $29.40 with shipping. I made $12.84. So again, nothing to really, cheer about as far as dollars, but 50 cents into almost $13 profit, that's an okay margin. Almost 200 days to sell though. So whatever, it sat on the shelf for a while, didn't it? Okay, next up, let's just get into, health and beauty now. We're selling here some hot rollers. Now I have to shout out other YouTubers that I have watched. I don't know that I would have ever looked this up in a thrift store or even known to look this up, but other resellers on YouTube who I enjoy watching were selling this sort of thing. So now when I see it, I check it out. And sure enough, check it out. I paid $2.50. I'm going to guess that it was $5 and this was on the 50% off day at Wynn's, pretty sure, thrift store. Buyer paid $69.10 and I made a cool $38 plus profit on these hot rollers. Took 208 days to sell, but pretty nice profit margin. The next item, not so much. So Nathan, if you didn't know, my assistant, my nephew who worked for me all summer, he loves Lego. A couple of videos actually. I went to the Goodwill bins and he went to this Lego bin store. Anyway, that was just a funny little fact. I am not a Lego aficionado. I don't know much about Lego, but I thought I would dabble one time. This is very early days of my reselling journey. And I paid on Facebook Marketplace $15 for this brand new in box, never opened, Lego Year of the Dragon. Now, maybe it was very relevant at the time I bought it, and I don't know. But whatever, you can see, check the bottom first. 678 days to sell. This thing was listed on my eBay store for almost 2 years. What? Anyway, I paid $15, which was probably arguably too much. The buyer paid almost $42, but by the time I shipped it and all the fees and everything came out and I don't know what, $6.69 profit. So is that a good business model to have an item in your inventory for almost 2 years and make $6 on it? I would say no. Was I very glad to get it out of my house though? You bet. All right, the next one is another cute little story. So these I found at the bins. Now these are little tiny, they're about this big, little girl dress up boots. And they are from Frozen, and they are Anna boots. So if you, I don't know the movie, if you do, this might all make sense to you. Anyway, they're these little princess boots. Sold them local pickup for $10. Problem was, I went to find them, could not find them. I think I mentioned this in another previous video when I was cleaning out my garage. I have on my shipping, on my eBay store, I should say, my shipping policy is that I will ship within 3 business days. I typically ship same day or next to sort of exceed expectations. But in this case, I was pushing it right to the end and I let the buyer know 2 days out that I was having trouble finding it. And I eventually got to the point, again, this is a $10 local pickup item that I paid $2 for. So like my profit is not going to be big in any way. And I looked for like 2 hours, couldn't find them. And I was like, how many hours am I going to look for this $10 item, right? Now, I messaged the buyer and she came back and said, oh no, this is for my daughter. She would absolutely love this. I'm going to give it to her for Christmas. Because I had said, if you would like, I can keep looking. And she asked if I would. So how can I say no to a request like that when I'm picturing some little girl on Christmas Day, her eyes lighting up, and her mom being able to buy this for her. So I kept looking. long story short, I found them in the garage, tucked away in one of the garage sale leftover bins. Oh, bad organization on my part. Anyway, this is not about the profit, $6.30 and 200 days to sell. But was I happy? Oh, yes, that this little girl got her Disney Frozen Anna boots for Christmas. All right, now we're going from kid dress-up little costume princess boots to high-end champagne. Why not? Like I said, I sell anything and everything. So this is Veuve Clicquot, which is a very nice champagne brand. And they apparently do all sorts of unique and interesting tins for their bottles of champagne. So I found this at the Goodwill bins one day, along with, you can see in the smaller little inset photo, 2 sort of neoprene sleeves to keep your bottles chilled. I paid $2.15 for those 3 combined items, and my buyer paid $50. This was a local pickup, again, just before Christmas, and he said, oh, his wife, I think it was, girlfriend, wife, loves champagne, and this would just make the gift ever so special to be able to put it in this unique mailbox tin container as a Christmas gift. So kind of fun stories, right? And fun for me is $42.62 profit. So it took a while to sell, but held out, got a good price. All right, sticking with the Christmas theme, since it is now all December sales, I sold this little ornament. So I found this again at the Goodwill bins, just sitting in the bottom of a bin. Everyone else passed it by. I paid $1.45 and a buyer paid $27.98, leaving me, after shipping and fees, with $15.96, but I'll take it. Do y'all know Tim Hortons coffee? Canadian icon. Everybody supposedly loves Tim Hortons coffee. Again, not a coffee drinker, so don't know what all the hype is about, but it seems to be quite a popular thing. All right, moving along, another belt. This one, a women's belt. Now, interesting about this one is unbranded. There was no brand name anywhere to be found on this belt, and yet I picked it up for style, as some of the other YouTubers will say when they sell clothing. Style-based pickup. You know, really nice leather. It's got the studded details, got these turquoise accents. We have quite the Western sort of culture around here, cowboy culture here in Calgary, as I've said before. So it caught my eye and I thought, you know what, why not? I paid $2.21. Buyer paid $42.64. And I made a nice little tidy $23.07 profit. Took 108 days to sell, so actually fairly quick when you consider the closure. Next one is a very heavy, thick velour bathrobe, a men's bathrobe. When I saw it in the clothing bin at the bins, I rarely do clothing, but you know, obviously you could tell this striped pattern probably is what caught my eye. It was really heavy, but mixed in with all the other items I bought that day, my average cost was $1.34. So when can you buy a luxurious men's bathrobe for $1.34? Never. Buyer paid $62.03. I made $36.24. Took 6 months to sell, but what the heck, why not? Okay, this next one is something that, again, I paid up for. This was at a little local thrift store in Cochrane, Alberta, about a half an hour away from my house in Calgary. I paid, this was on a 50% off day, $23.63. So it was probably like $45, and then I paid half and a little bit of tax. Anyway, almost $24 I invested into this beautiful vintage Oneida community South Seas pattern, silver plated flatware, 50 pieces, and then in the original box. Now, the wood was like all scuffed up and had all kinds of marks, which we were very clear to take photos and point that out in the description. Does anybody really care about the box? Probably not. Anyway, I paid $23.63, but my buyer paid $135.70. And this is after an offer. I forget what I had it listed for. Maybe $125, and I sent an offer for $99, or I don't know, something like this. Anyway, My net profit, $69.14. So when you look at my cost versus my profit, it's not the 10x factor that I love to get whenever I can, but it's still $70 in my pocket after everything, net profit. So I'll take it, 142 days. Now the next one, I got to admit, I was a little bit puzzled over this one. I mean, he's cute, don't get me wrong. He was like this big, this cute little dolphin, 22 inches. No branding. Had a flaw. There was like a little pocket on the inside, and there was a bit of a tear, like all on the inside with the lining and stuff, not on the outside. Anyway, I paid $1.24 for this little cutie. My buyer paid $50.31. A fair bit of that was shipping, I think. I don't remember if they chose like an expedited shipping option or something, but anyway, this cute little light as a feathered dolphin, which I could just put in a poly bag to ship, made me $27 almost for profit. So you just don't know, right? What's going to sell? Took 198 days. All right, next up, this is something I didn't even know existed until I sold it previous, and now here's another one. I found this about 3 times, I think, at the bins, and this particular one is the Game of Life. Now, this is in a nice wooden box. It's got like a spine, so you could put it on like a library shelf, and it kind of looks like a book or something. That's why I put the word bookshelf, as you can see, in the item title. Anyway, my cost of goods at the bins that day, woohoo, $1.03. And the buyer paid $65.07. So my profit, just shy of $40 on this game. Now, you know, I did take the time. I didn't actually show a photo here, but this life cover slides off and then all the pieces are inside. I did make sure that, you know, it had all the pieces so that someone wouldn't be disappointed. And of course it did. 154 days to sell. And last but not least, well, it is least. I'll throw it up here. I just put it in to show we're all human. This was a Wedgwood, beautiful white jasper ornament in the original Wedgwood box. Now it says read. Usually when I put that on a listing in the title, it means there's a flaw or something. In this case, the flaw was just the box had a little tear where there had been a piece of tape on it. But, you know, in case someone's giving it as a gift or in case they're a collector and they want everything super pristine, I always disclose anything that's not 100%. Anyway, I paid $1.41 for this. That would be at the bins. Buyer paid $25.59, and then when I went to ship it, the box slipped off the edge of my desk and hit the floor. And when I opened it up, the little arm, so one of the characters, their little hand had broken off. So I was like, you know what, I can't send this. I mean, you know, it could be glued, obviously. It wasn't shattered. It was just like a clean break. But that's not what somebody paid for, right? So I messaged the buyer, explained what happened. They said they were very disappointed. But I said, of course, if you would prefer to cancel, I mean, I'll glue it for you. But if you prefer to cancel, I will, of course, be very understanding of that. So they canceled the order. I gave them a full refund. And boo-hoo for me, I probably lost out on $15, $16, something, $17 profit. But, you know, accidents happen. I'm glad it was something that I paid $1.41 for and not something that I, you know, paid up for. These things happen, right? It's all the cost of doing business. So let's show you a quick summary of what December looked like in total. Now, these numbers are not as high as November, but again, I had my store closed for a week in November, which has a trickle-on effect. I had my store on vacation mode for the last 2 weeks of December, meaning if somebody bought something on like the 15th when my store was on vacation mode, I wouldn't be shipping it until January the 3rd. So that, I'm sure, would discourage a lot of buyers who don't want to wait like 3 or more weeks for something. So understandable. Anyway, 14 items did sell in this month of December. Buyers paid a total of just almost $744. Taking out the eBay fees and the shipping labels, that cost me $276. The cost of goods was a penny shy of $64. So end of the day, I made $403, pardon me, profit in December. Heck, I was on vacation for 2 weeks and I haven't been doing anything on eBay. So, you know, all of this profit is really pure profit in my mind. And what does this translate to? I always like to show the net profit as well. On my $64 I paid for the items and the $400 profit, that's 630%. So just over 6x my money on these particular items. Like I said, as I was, you know, talking about them, some of them I was just glad to get rid of. Some of them, you know, didn't make a huge profit, but hey, profit's profit, right? So I'll throw up the last slide here, and this is just a whole picture of what happened in the 8 weeks after I had completely shut down my eBay store and everything ground to a halt. And you can see total sales, $1,828, net profit, $980. So almost $1,000 profit in 8 weeks of kind of doing nothing other than shipping. So I am not unhappy about it. I'm happy. And again, just that net profit number, that is close to 8 times my money on the $127 worth of goods that I paid for, that I flipped on eBay during this period. So all in all, what is this telling us? Well, I still do stand by what I've said in previous videos, that if you want your sales to increase, if you want to keep up a steady pace of sales, you should regularly be listing items on eBay. But I don't know, are you surprised? I think I was even a little bit surprised that I sold, 34 items for $1,800 after having my store shut down, after not listing anything, not doing anything. The only time I touched eBay in this period was to ship something, basically. So all in all, I don't know. What does it tell us? I'm not suggesting that you should open an eBay store, list a bunch of stuff, and then not doing anything. But all I can say is I am truly, truly grateful that I am still making sales, recouping some of the investment I made last summer in hiring Nathan full-time for the summer. And I do enjoy giving these items new homes, new life, sending them off into the world to be with their new owners. So thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in, learning more about sort of the business end of this, let me know what you'd like to know. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with some more video. Bye.